Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Conscious Cafe Global. Here we are on Zoom for, I think, is our 8th event, and we've got a lovely evening ahead of us. We're recording tonight, as we have done with other events. Lynn McTaggart, Krista McKinnon, a shaman we had last week. There's some really great things to see, and they're all on Conscious Cafe's YouTube channel. You can see them there. And this will be put up in a week or so on that channel too. Welcome to Isabel, LOSADA, our speaker this evening. Welcome, Isabel. You can unmute in a minute. So I just want to start off with introducing Conscious Cafe. I don't know whether you've all been to Conscious Cafe before or if we have any new people here, but feel free to put in the chat if you're new. Conscious Cafe is something that started 9 years ago by Judy Piakis, who's with us this evening. She started it in London, and having sold up her publishing business, she was looking to create a place for community and conversation, place to talk about things that mattered. And that's how Conscious Cafe was born. It proved very popular, and over the last 3 or 4 years, quite a lot of regional groups have been formed. Canterbury, Oundle, New Forest, St Albans, Newbury. I have one in Skipton. We're kind of pulling in Lancashire and Yorkshire. We have them overseas. We have 2 in Geneva, en masse in France, Singapore, and our latest one is opened in Rome, Italy. And I believe we've got one starting in Vancouver. So because of these times, we're not meeting in a room together, which is something we love to do and all talk. But we have these Zoom meetings where we have great information, and it often provides a great stimulus for us to talk about that in our regional meetings. So if you want to see, all the regionals are having meetings. They're all different. And again, you can, just because you don't live in Canterbury doesn't mean to say you can't join a Canterbury or a Skipton meeting. While I'm here, I'm going to talk quickly about the next events we have. We've got 2 more lined up. One is Enhancing Your Intelligent Conversation. That's with Silvana Caloni. That's next week on Wednesday the 29th. That's a really interesting one. That will be very interactive. And then the following week will be Jessica Adams. 6th of August, Thursday the 6th, at a date and time the astrologer says is really good. She is a renowned astrologer and very good at big picture thinking, and she has written about the forecast for the next 20 years ahead. It's going to be fantastic listening to her, so I highly recommend that one as well. And each group has events. So tonight, we have, as I said, Isabel, and she's going to be talking for about an hour, and then we'll have some time for some questions afterwards, and then being 7 o'clock start, we will finish by 8:30, which doesn't apply to people if they're watching the recording. Tonight's talk is The Joyful Environmentalist, which is the name of a book. Isabel launched this book during lockdown, so you're on mute, Isabel, if you want to chip in. You can unmute yourself, you can do that. Yeah, you got that. So you haven't been doing the book tour, at least not in person, but you've been around talking to people, I'm sure. And it's a very timely subject because, as we were talking about the other day, Isabel, the value of nature has really been brought home to people who've been stuck in their homes. And I've noticed, I've read about how properties with gardens, and even moving to the country, this seems to be the need for nature. People are really realizing that, the need for nature and the need for a garden and the need to grow vegetables. And I can put my hand up to that one. I've certainly been out there planting my beetroots and mange too, fighting the slugs, I have to say. So tonight, let me talk about Isabel. Isabel is a best-selling author, and she combines humor and a serious look at important topics. Always great to bring humor in. She's worked as an actress, a broadcaster, a public speaker, a comedian, and so great, we've got comedy here. And I loved in Isabel's bio where she talked about committed to swimming against the tide. Yes, that does require a lot of energy, but it is so important, isn't it? Let me just tell you about Isabel's books. They include a best-selling Battersea Park Road to Enlightenment. What a great title. A Beginner's Guide to Changing the World for Tibet with Love. Men, exclamation mark, sensation, adventures in sex, love and laughter. And this latest one, the Joyful Environmentalist, I asked her about this joy aspect of it, and what Isabel said in terms of a joyful approach was that when she recently took part in a march, as she felt that it was the right thing to do, she didn't want to march, so she joined the samba band. So she's there, committed, bringing her energy to something, but doing it in a joyful way. And looking at the, you know, some of the comments about her book, I love this one from some actor, Sir Mark Rylance, when he says, "She gave my spirit a lift and my feet somewhere to stand." So this sounds highly practical and uplifting. So Isabel, over to you, and we're going to welcome you. We're all on mute, but we're going to give you a warm welcome, which we would do if we're in the room with you.
Thank you, Jill. Yes, those of you who are fans of Mark Rylance, which is obviously everybody, right? When he wrote back and said, "She's given my feet somewhere to stand," I mean, I nearly died of joy. I thought, I can think of lots of places for your feet to stand, Mark. You can stand in my garden, in my kitchen, in my lounge, in my bathroom, at so many places. There's no limit to the amount of places, on my pillow. Anyway, so yes, I was very, very pleased with that lovely commendation from him. And to be fair to me, that there is some truth in what he said. He wasn't just being polite with that commendation, because I don't know, I'm assuming, and I think this is a safe assumption to make, that many of you listening tonight will be way more experienced environmentalists than I am. I'm not assuming for a moment that I know more about this subject than you do. Some of you have probably been working for the environment for 10 years or more, 20, 30 years. So, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that in the environmental movement, there's a lot of focus on the problem. I've been reading books about the environment for about 2 years, and they, I would make a list of them, but they are all very depressing. They all go into the nature of the problem, the history of the problem, and then they explain the scientific nature of the problem of climate change, and it's gloomy. And even Mark, when I heard him speak, he was speaking about how bad it was. And I've reached the stage now where I've read so many of these books that if I'm hearing a speaker and they start to talk about how bad the climate situation is, I glaze over. I just want the solutions. I'm just interested in the solutions. I don't want to know any more about how bad the problem is. I want to know what I can do. So I'm sure the same applies to all of you, which is why the first line of my book is, so what I'm doing is this. I'm skipping. I don't even bother to give an introduction with all the problems in. I just get right on with the solutions. So about being an environmentalist, this is how the dictionary defines an environmentalist, just so that you know this book is for all of you. An environmentalist is a person who seeks to improve the quality of the natural environment and protect it from harmful human activity. So that's you, I'm sure. You all want to protect the natural environment and protect it from harmful human activity. Every sane person does. So that's you, that's me, that's everyone. So what I did with, so that's the environmentalist bit. And then the joyful bit, because as we know, life is short, I just wanted to look at the things that we can do to help the environment that are also going to enhance our lives, because life is very, very short. We're all going to be dead soon. This is the cheerful comedian that you signed up to hear tonight. We're all going to be in our graves in the twink of an eye, as we know. So while we're here, for what's left of our years, we all want to do what we can to help the planet, don't we? And we also want to live a good life. So I wanted to put my focus on all the things that we could do that would help the planet and enhance our lives at the same time. That's where I'm putting my focus. So when Gina talked about mentioning the samba bands, there's one section of the book where most of the book is about what we can all do as individuals and the differences that we can make, and they are many and manifold. But I also looked at the greater picture, and one of the larger issues obviously is activism. Do we want to be involved in the activist world in any way, and if so, how, and all that? So when the climate action came along last year, I ummed and ahed about whether I wanted to get involved or not. I wasn't altogether convinced with all the methods that they were using. I live in London, so I know how easy easily drivers get fed up if you block the roads. And I wasn't convinced about getting arrested, but I thought, but I wanted to go and see what they were doing and why they were doing it and talk to people and find out about the activists there. So I thought, well, okay, how can I do this in a way that is both going to support the environment action, not annoy the police, and be joyful? And then I heard they had a samba band. So obviously there I was with my drum, and I ended up, as you see from the designer, the rather lovely design, ended up with this sort of version of this mad samba drumming woman on the cover. Although why I seem to have a strange skin disease. I don't know if you can see that. It's a bit weird on the design, on the design. But anyway, yes. So that's an example of protesting joyfully, because if you're drumming, if you're hitting a drum, everybody loves it. The activists love it, the passers-by love it, the children dance, and even the police love it. Although they sort of try not to, they try really hard not to enjoy it, but the rhythm is so compelling that you can see even the police are having a good time. And I'm all for that. I don't believe in enemies, and I know all you that are members of Conscious Cafe think a lot about your spirituality. So I'm sure that none of you have a concept of us and them. You know, we're all on the same side. It's all, you know, there's no enemy. So I thought I'd start off, because as I say, I assume that you all know more about the environment than I do, by giving you a little quiz for your own entertainment. So what we're going to do is I'm going to run through some questions. And we're going to start with the real basics. One of the real basic things that we can do as environmentalists in the choices that we make every day is not to support the petrochemical industry. And one way we can do that is by not buying plastic. So I'm not just talking about single-use plastic. I'm talking about all the plastic in your home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through this list, and for your own entertainment, we're going to see who's really good at this and who isn't. So this is just a little bit of information for you to see who's already way ahead, and we can let Judy know. We can let Judy and Gina know who the leaders are here. So this is really just for fun. So I'm going to run through the plastic in your home. So if you do not buy plastic shampoo in those plastic bottles those normal plastic bottles, and conditioner in normal plastic, well, let's do them separately. If you don't buy shampoo in a plastic bottle, but you buy it in a bar form that's cheaper and doesn't have chemicals in, score 1 point. Likewise, if you get hair conditioner not in a plastic bottle, but in a bar form that doesn't have chemicals in and is better for your scalp and is cheaper, score 1 point. If you do not have plastic razors in the house, but have one of those lovely, beautiful, old-fashioned metal razors with a proper razor in that you have for the rest of your life, score 1 point. If you don't have a ridiculous soap container with a plastic thing that pushes down, but have a nice old bar of soap like your grandmother used to have that smells of perfume and is beautiful every time you wash your hands, if you have an old-fashioned bar of soap in your bathroom, score 1 point. If you've found a source of buying fruit and vegetables, maybe from a local market, or maybe you have a delivery company, but your fruit and vegetables arrive at your house not wrapped in plastic, score 1 point. If you have a local waste-free shop that you occasionally or regularly go to with containers of your own, and you fill it up with nuts and seeds and lentils and all the dried produce, and you're able to bring it home, empty out your own containers and not have all the plastic that all that stuff comes in. So you take your own containers, you bring home your own containers from your waste-free shop, score 1 point. If, of course, you never ever buy water in a plastic bottle, but you obviously have it from a tap, score 1 point. Little side note here, because I often get asked about the finances of this journey. I have a local friend, there's a woman who I know from my local cafe. She's very poor, she's really on the breadline, and I know she uses the local food bank because she's really, really struggling financially. But for some reason, she's got it in her head that she doesn't want to drink tap water. She wants to drink water she buys bottled water. And I keep teasing her about how rich she must be, because she buys 2 bottles of water a day. And I've told her that she's spending £820 a year on plastic water bottles. I mean, obviously, if you buy one of those, you're buying the bottle, aren't you? The water, you know, the water's free. So she's spending 800. So if you never, ever buy water in plastic bottles, either fizzy or still, because you're an advanced group, so I'm not going to let you get away with fizzy water in plastic bottles either. Okay. If you have tote bag that you always take with you when you go to the shops. You don't forget your tote bag. You've got a nice little favorite cotton tote bag that's tucked away, and you never find yourself coming back from the supermarket with 56 plastic bags. Score 1 point. If you've managed to find a lip moisturizer in a local health shop or somewhere that comes in a little cardboard container, or you have a lip moisturizer in a tin, not in a plastic container, score 1 point. If you have toothpaste in tabs, they're like little tablets, and you put them in your mouth and you brush your teeth with them. You buy them at Lush, but you never buy those silly plastic toothpaste tubes. You buy tooth tabs instead. They're made of bicarbonate of soda. They clean your teeth much better. Score 1 point. If you have your toothbrush, of course, made of bamboo, you wouldn't dream of using a plastic toothbrush, because you know that plastic toothbrushes end up polluting our beaches and our waterways, and they don't biodegrade. So you, of course, have a bamboo one. Score 1 point. If you don't use plastic dental floss, but you use dental lace that is not made of plastic, score 1 point. If your hairbrushes and your makeup brushes are made of wood, not of plastic, score 1 point. If you don't have anywhere in the house a ridiculous nylon, hideous coloured, scrunchy thing in the bathroom on a rope, a nylon scrunchy ball, if you do not own one of those, but you do own an organic cotton flannel, again, like your grandmother used to have, score 1 point. If you use, this is a difficult one you have to do in the side, or else it's not fair on the men, but if you have any kind of sanitary protection and you don't, we'll skip that one, but sanitary protection, you have to be careful to get alternative sanitary protection so it's not all full of plastic. Okay, if you do not buy ever in any form wet wipes, if you have no wet wipes in your house, score 1 point. The banks of the Thames, my friends, are full of piles and piles of wet wipes. And the reason they're full of is because people use them and then they flush them down the toilet. And then when it rains hard, they flush through the overflow. They end up on the banks of the Thames, and they're like mountains. A friend of mine who's an environmentalist took me down there, and I was looking at them and saying, and she said, look at those wet wipes. I went, what do you mean? That's just the banks. So we went up. She went, no, look. And she pulled it up. It's like mountains of wet wipes. They're terrible. The water companies have terrible trouble trying to get rid of them. Washing powder. If you buy your washing powder in a box like your grandmother had, just soap powder in a cardboard box, and you do not have one of those ridiculous plastic bottles, score 1 point. If you use soap nuts, which are a natural product that you can put in with your washing, you know, you can have an extra bonus point there. Soap nuts, you're way ahead. Okay. For washing up, if you don't have those little square plastic pads with a green scrunchy bit on it, but you do your washing up with something that's biodegradable, maybe a loofah or maybe a coconut pad, but you don't have those little square things, you know, with the green on one side, they're not really sponge at all. They're made of plastic. If you don't use those, score 1 point. If your food containers are not, if you have food containers that are elephant boxes, which is the beautiful metal ones that have the clips on the side like they use in the Indian houses, if you don't have those, but you have a cupboard full of Tupperware instead, if you have the metal ones, score 1 point. If you don't have plastic lighters in the house, but you use matches, good old-fashioned matches instead, score 1 point. Also, matches in the toilet are fantastic, because I don't know if you know this, but if you strike a match, if someone's left a smell in the toilet and you just strike a match, the smell magically disappears. And where all of our inner child is sufficiently in touch that you can never get bored of striking a match. I mean, striking a match is just fun. Whereas if you have a gas, one of those things, you get the fumes from the lighter and you have the plastic, and then you throw the plastic away. Anna's dog is very cute. Yes, so 1 point if you just have matches, and 2 points if you have matches in your toilet. Okay, I'm belting through this because I do have other things to say tonight. This is just a warm up, really. Right. If when you buy cotton, you make a genuine effort to buy organic cotton because you know about the farmers and you're trying to look after the land, score 1 point. Now here's one of my favorites. If you do not have, if you have, as again, your grandmother or grandfather had, a metal fountain pen that you use, a metal fountain pen. And this one, metal fountain pens these days, for those of you that love pens, they don't have those levers like the one your granny had. They have a little injector thing on the inside and you turn it around. Okay, there's a little bit of plastic inside, but the pen is metal. And you draw it up, you put it in the inkwell, the glass inkwell, and you draw up the ink into your pen, and you can choose the nib whether you want to one calligraphy or just a normal nib. But if you do not have 32 or more plastic biros in your house, but you have one beautiful fountain pen, one or more beautiful fountain pen that you love, score a point. Plastic pencils, no. Oh yes, plastic pencils. If you've got any kind of plastic pencils in your house, lose a point. I mean, horrendous. A plastic pencil. Who could ever have come up with such a thing? Another aside, because it's not fair because it only works for dog owners, but those of you that do have dogs, there's biodegradable poo bags and biodegradable poo bags. Some of the things that they sell as biodegradable poo bags, they just break down faster than other dog poo bags. If you have a dog, you have to make sure that your dog poo bags are made of corn syrup. They have to be properly biodegradable. So check that out. If you have one of those lovely old French percolators for your coffee, where you just put the coffee in and the coffee bubbles up and it makes a wonderful rich smell in your kitchen and enriches your life every morning, and you do not have plastic coffee pods, score a point. If you have wonderful tea that comes out of a tea caddy with tea leaves in and doesn't have a plastic tea bag around it, score another point. Right, that'll do. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like to add up all your points. This is just plastic in the house we're just doing. Add up all your points, write it in a reasonably thick way because it's sometimes hard to read them off the screen, and hold up your score on the screen. And let's just see. This isn't about shaming anyone. This is just about seeing who is the bestest environmentalist here. I've had some very low numbers and some very high numbers. 7, 6. See, I'm not going to read out the names. What have we got here? Can't see your number, Judy. 12. Oh, we haven't improved any advance on 12. 2 12s. 6.5. 7, 12. 12. Tony, what's your score? Can't read it. 4. Oh, sorry, I accidentally gave a score away then. 13. Oh. I can't see Angeline and Zohar. I can't see your screen, and Jill. So how do I know? And Natalie, I can't see your, because you've not got your video on. Doomed. 5. Well, Angelina, Zohar, or Natalie, or Jill, you may be the winners, but because I can't see your screen, a 17. Someone can see. 17. It's 17. Any advance on 17? Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, well, Elspeth, it looks like you are the leading environmentalist here, unless I've missed anyone. Does anyone have an advance on 17? Can we see in the chat? Anyone got a higher than 17? A white dog and a black cat? I see 17. Right, no, I think 17 has it then. Well, well done, Elspeth. Very good. So obviously, this is really just me acknowledging that, you know, that there's a lot that you can do to not be supporting the oil industry. And you know, the oil industry, it employs, I've got a list here of the oil industry employs people specially to sit down and make up plastic products that we don't need. And then they try to sell them to us on social media. I can't read you this list because it would be another list, but they, once you start to notice this, you'll start to notice them on social media all the time. They pop up. And one of the things that they love to do is they market these products as eco. So for example, you know those plastic eggs that they try and sell you to put your soap powder inside your washing machine? You notice they call them eco eggs. But quite what is eco about a plastic egg that you need to put your soap liquid in to put in your washing machine? Then they sell you another eco egg to go in your dryer. So there's all these ridiculous products. I started to notice them, and so I counted them. And so I'm just going to tell you a few of them. I'm not making these up. A plastic pram for pushing a watermelon includes chiller to keep your melon cool. £130. I mean, honestly, this was being marketed A plastic contraption for hard boiling eggs without the shell. You take the eggs out of their shells, you put the egg into the egg-shaped container, which you then place in boiling water, £14. These are all absolutely, I won't go on. A doormat made of plastic, which is apparently superior to a normal doormat. However, unlike traditional doormats, will never biodegrade. £90.72 for a plastic doormat. A plastic dust daddy attachment. You must have seen these on Facebook or online. A dust daddy attachment for a vacuum cleaner with strands that's to suck up delicate objects like leaves or dust on books, which obviously a normal vacuum cleaner wouldn't do, right? It's an attachment, £10.99 to go on the end of your Hoover thing. And then my favorite, Tony, you might need to cover your ears here because of the excitement, because girls, listen to this. An intimate shaping tool, a piece of plastic that you put between your legs to shave your pubic hair into a heart shape, a downward arrow, or an exclamation mark. £14.95. Now, don't you want to rush off and find one of those? So there are people whose full-time job it is. Oh, I think actually I did, the research is there. I mean, they spend billions of pounds every year to persuade people to buy these plastic objects, and we don't need them. And you know, I was speaking earlier on about how life enhancing it is. All the things that I'm suggesting in this book are life enhancing in one way or another, but it's a very subtle thing that happens when you start to remove plastic from your life. Like I gave you the example of the pen. I mean, okay, a good fountain pen can be expensive. But if you've got a birthday, if you love writing and you love a good pen, if you have a beautiful pen with a beautiful nib, if you've got a birthday coming up, you treat yourself to a fountain pen. I can't tell you, it's leagues away from writing with a plastic biro. The plastic biros are horrible things. Similarly, the coffee thing I was telling you about. The coffee, I wanted coffee to have a lovely smell. And if you have those French things that the coffee bubbles up, you just grind the coffee beans. The coffee, it's completely different. And they made these plastic pods. Nescafe made these plastic coffee pods so that once you, I mean, if you've already got one of those machines, you're stuck, because obviously what can you do with it? But the idea is that you spend more than you need to on the coffee and you go on buying these plastic pods for the rest of your life. Friends, all we need is the coffee, right? So, and then another of my favorite examples, I bought many years ago, as I think we all did, I went out when Muji, the shop Muji first existed, and I bought those big square plastic containers for storage, and they're plastic on the side so you can see what's inside them, and I bought a couple of those. And then recently I was down in Devon in Totnes Market, and I saw from Ghana these beautiful wicker baskets that had been made, hand weaved by a woman in reds and oranges with these beautiful patterns. And I thought, why am I storing in these ghastly plastic containers when I could have something that's actually handmade by somebody? So all these things, as you remove the quick plastic, you find that things just feel more real. They feel better, and you're not supporting the plastic industry. Okay, that's enough about plastic. So what I do in the book is I jump around and I look at all the areas of our life in which we can help the environment. So let's take, I'm just going to read through some of the things here. So I'm talking the energy supply on your house, the way you garden, the way you bank, the way you volunteer, the way you travel, the food you eat, the clothes you buy, everything. So let me see, in no particular order. Let's start with something easy. Let's start with banking. So banking is a really interesting one, because I'm sure you've heard about the disinvestment idea. Now, I've been with the same high street bank since I was 18 years old. I've been ridiculously loyal to them for some strange reason, and I've got absolutely no idea what they do with my money. So what I did for this project is I wanted to check that they weren't doing anything that was damaging the environment, because I was trying to put all my life in line with protecting the environment. So I wrote to them and I said, can you please let me know about your lending portfolio and your investment portfolio? What are your ethical guidelines? You know, is it in the public domain who you lend money to? And I realized that you could be, for example, one of you could be, could have spent your life in medicine. You could be committed to caring for people, and you could be giving your money unknown to you. You could be supporting the arms industry. Or you could be a committed vegan and you could be supporting the vivisection factory down the road where they're torturing puppies for some kind of medical experimentation. Or you could be a teacher committed to public education whose money is going to the posh private school down the road and giving them a third wing and a second swimming pool. You just don't know. If you're with a high street bank, you've got no idea what they're doing with your money. So I wrote to them and I said all this, and I said, please, can you let me know? Can you give me the information? So a long time back, I pretended I was writing an article for The Guardian to make sure I got their attention. So another 2 weeks went by, and then eventually they get back to me and they, with a load of obscure gobbledygook, which basically amounts to no, we do not, it's not in the public domain who we lend money into and who we invest money in. So then I thought, well, actually, I'm not really happy about that. I don't want to understand all these obscure terms. I've got no interest in understanding what ring fencing is. I'm sure there's an easier answer to this. So then I wrote to Triodos Bank, who have a reputation for ethical banking. And I said to them, can you let me know, is your lending portfolio and your investment portfolio in the public domain? And they wrote back and said, yes, it is. Here's a link. You can look at all the people that we lend money into and all the people that we invest money in. And I thought, well, right, that's an easy swap. And I said goodbye to my high street bank, and I didn't really shed any tears for them. Now, one of you is thinking, well, yes, Isabel, but I've only got £42.50 in my bank account anyway. Well, that may be the case, but it's symbolic, isn't it? Because there's a disinvestment movement. So what we need to do is we need, as they say at Triodos, to put our money where our values are. So here are some of you, you've spent your lifetime, you spent a lifetime thinking about what you care about, what you want to support, how your lives want to make a difference, how you want to impact on things. But it may not have got as far as your bank account. You might still be banking with, for example, Barclays, I believe, is absolute top of the bad banks in terms of not being ethical. So that's an easy swap that you can make. And then when I was on the radio recently, I was on Times Radio, and he was saying to me, well, I thought this was supposed to be joyful. You know, it doesn't sound very much joyful, changing our bank account. Sounds like a pain in the neck. And I said, it's utterly joyful. It's utterly joyful, because for the first time in my life, you know, if you think in spiritual terms, if you think in terms of congruity and being congruent in what you do and where you put your energy, for the first time in my life, I'm proud of my bank. I've never been able to say that before. You know, who would have thought it's possible to be proud of your bank? So that's a little bit on banking. Right, what next? Clothes, fashion, so funny. So I've got this book out, and of course I've got this publicist, and all they want to know is about fashion, fashion this, fashion that, fashion that. What was it? The Scotsman sent me one of those pages, My Life in Clothes. You know, what is your favorite high street shop? I so much enjoyed answering these questions. Like, I don't go to high street shops. So I suggest to you that we don't have a problem with clothing, do we? I mean, when was the last time you saw somebody walking down the road naked and you thought, oh, poor them, they obviously don't have any clothes? I mean, we have clothes as a society. I bet every single person that I'm talking to tonight has got enough clothes for the rest of their life. I bet if you never bought another item of clothing between now and death, you'd be just fine. You've got enough clothes already. You don't need any more clothes. But maybe I'm being a little bit mean. Let's assume that you've only got enough clothes for the next 10 years, for example. I mean, well, that's the next 10 years already. Now, did you know that most people, apparently, they wear 20% of their clothes 80% of the time? So you've got this wardrobe full of clothes, and you've got, and at one end, you've got the clothes that you love every day and you wear them every day. And the other 80% of the clothes, you don't wear them because you don't love them. They just sit there and they take up space in your wardrobe, and they prevent you from being able to see the clothes that you really love. So in the book, I suggest this really radical method, which is take all your clothes out of the wardrobe, a la Marie Kondo, put them all on the bed, then pick up the ones that you really love, your most favorite clothes, that if you suddenly had to pack a bag and leave the country and you could only take one bag of clothes, take those clothes, the clothes you really love, those ones, put them back in the wardrobe. That's the 20%. And then take the whole other 80% of the clothes, the ones that you don't really like, you don't really wear, they don't really fit you, all those clothes, wash them, launder them, and then put them somewhere else. And then when your friends come around, say to them, would you like to look at my giveaways? And be generous. Give away the clothes that you don't wear. Look upon it as a spiritual exercise if you want to be very conscious, Cafe, because you're not wearing those clothes anyway. So be generous with them. Wear the clothes that you really love and give the clothes that you don't wear to people who will really love them and who will wear them. And then what happens when you give away a large amount, or you get rid of a large amount of your clothes, is the 20% of the clothes that are less. Anyone that has done the Marie Kondo process knows this. You open your wardrobe in the morning, and instead of feeling like you've got nothing to wear, suddenly your wardrobe is full of clothes that you love, and you've got a whole wardrobe full of clothes that you to wear, because you just see what you've got. So it's another example of less is more. Now, if you really want to buy an item of clothing, which I suggest that you don't need to for the next 10 years, but if you do want to buy an item of clothing, then say once a year, maybe buy something that you really know you love and spend the absolute maximum you can, and make sure that you're using organic cotton. You've heard this terrible thing about the sheep, the British sheep farmers are having to throw away wool now, because nobody's buying it, because everybody's buying crap all the time. So really good quality English woolly jumpers with people that care about their flocks and are doing wonderful things with natural dyes, they can't sell it because we're all buying crap. So we should be buying lovely, beautiful, we could be buying wonderful things like that. And we could be buying organic cotton and ethically grown things that are fairly traded, that keep people in the developing world in business. But don't buy any item of clothing if you don't know the supply chain of the item. So you need to know the supply chain. You need to know, as they say in the ethical fashion industry, who made my clothes. Now, a whole better level than that, and maybe some of you are privileged enough to be in this group. I just salute you if you are. I've got one item of clothing. I've got this cardigan. It was made for me by a friend, and I talk about it in the book. It was made for me 30 years ago, and it's this beige cardigan. Really, I should always wear it when I do this presentation because it's just lovely. And those of you that knit, you know, it's got love in every stitch. I love when I put this cardigan on, I feel loved by the person that made it. It has love in it. Now, there's no amount of money that you could spend in any designer store in London that could buy you clothing with love in. Just clothing with love. And just think that there used to be a day when people would make clothes. They would sew clothes for the people that they love. Imagine any of you that suffer from depression or sadness of any kind, if you were dressed in clothing that people that you loved had made for you, how much different would that feel? You know, and we've lost that completely, but that's another whole level. But, you know, try making an item of clothing. I've never made an item of clothing in my life. I mean, isn't that sad? And apart from this cardigan, and I remember once when my daughter was a bridesmaid, I have to watch the clock. Oh my goodness, I've only got 15 minutes left. When my daughter was a bridesmaid and she was little, she was allowed to choose her own material. And then she stood on the table, she was about 6, while she watched this woman make a dress out of this piece of material that she bought. I mean, can you imagine that little girl putting on that dress that she'd watched somebody make? She was so proud. And that's all the difference in the world, isn't it? Between just going down to the shop and buying something off the rail and going, you know, here you are, darling, here's another 3 t-shirts, you know, from Primark. So supply chains with clothing and with fashion, but really, and then go to the charity shop. But don't, okay, about charity shops, you see, that's why I was saying at the beginning, I've got more material than I can possibly fit in an hour. Charity shops are really good to buy from, but not good to give things to, because I'm sad to tell you, really only 10% of the stuff that you take to the charity shop gets resold. Most of it gets packaged up in big bales, bailed across the world, and either ruining the local clothing industry in the country that they end up, or just ending up on landfills. So this is why we need to buy less clothes, and then if we've only got clothes we love, then we'll be wincing giving them away to our best friend who loves them because they're good quality. But if you've got clothes that are not good quality and that you don't love anyway, that you want to take to the charity shop, then, you know, think seriously about that. So hesitate before you give things to the charity shop. Give them to someone you love instead. But do go to the charity shop and buy things. That's different. So this gorgeous, I don't know if you can see it, it's this gorgeous lush red thing I'm wearing. Absolutely beautiful. I splashed out at the local charity shop with this. It cost me £9. It's got these lovely double sleeves. It's some designer label that I can't remember the name of. But anyway, okay. Energy supply, right? The energy supply in your house. So I went to see, and it's 1947. I went to see an air pollution man in London because I care about pollution. He started to talk to me about the energy supply in my house. My brain is going ... air pollution, energy supply in my house. Yeah, finally joined the dots. Okay, So if you rent or sell a house, you can have something done for your house called an energy proficiency certificate. Maybe some of you have had it done. And a little man from the government comes around with his little tick chart, and he ticks off and he says, oh yes, you get good points for this and bad points for that. And then he'll give you a rating depending on how energy efficient your house is. But this is the weird thing. He's not measuring the pollution levels. He's only measuring the energy levels. So I got completely confused here. I'm like, so you mean my ancient gas boiler? I thought he'd take one look at my gas boiler and say, well, that's got to go if you're even going to pass the test at all. But instead, no, he loved it. Why did he love it? It's very complicated. Because partly the government is still pushing the gas industry, despite the fact that we have renewable energy, we have renewable electricity. So I got very confused. So I ended up going off to the CEO, who I'm happy to say is a woman, of my energy company, which is Good Energy. And I interviewed her and I asked her all the questions that you would ask her if you could pin the CEO of your energy company in a corner. And she successfully convinced me that Good Energy are not just a company with greenwashing that claim to be green, but that they have a genuine commitment. She has a lifetime's genuine commitment to the energy in the country. So I was like, okay, well, you've talked me around. We discussed smart meters, we discussed all kinds of things. But then so I have this interview with her and I put her in the book, and then afterwards I suddenly thought, wait a minute, people are going to read my book and decide that they could go to Good Energy. So normally when a company, that's called a referral. Normally, if you recommend a company and they take it up because of you, then you get a referral. Now, obviously, I'm not going to get referrals, but I said, but I should get something and it should go to the readers somehow. So I managed to strike out, get this, I managed to strike out. So if you read my book and you're thinking about how you can make your life more environmentally friendly, and you do decide to change your energy company, and you do decide, having read the book, that Good Energy would be a good company for you, this book, get this, has a voucher, has a thing in the back that you put in the name of the book when you do it, and they will send you £50 voucher to spend on organic French wine at this supplier this Vintage Roots that they supply. So I'm like, this is a really good deal for my readers. They buy the book for £10 and then they get a £50 voucher to spend on organic wine. Go me. Anyway, so yes, obviously energy is important. Another thing that's really great for saving money is, I think you may have read that the government is giving away £5,000 vouchers this autumn to help people make their homes more energy efficient. So there are lots of things in the energy proficiency certificate that I do not recommend you do, because frankly they're all a bit mad, but there are some good ones, and the good ones are: get some old-fashioned heavy curtains, you know, those heavy curtains that we all took down off our windows because we didn't like them because they weren't fashionable. They're very good at keeping out the cold in winter. So heavy curtains are really great. Draft excluders, not the little cheap ones that always fell off like the ones your mum had, but properly fitted draft excluders that stop the wind going through your house. They're really good for looking after your energy. And double glazing. So if you can get one of those £2,000 vouchers and put it towards having even 1 or 2 windows on your house double glazed, A, it will save you money on your energy bills. B, it will, help save the planet because you'll be using less energy. And it will also increase the value of your house. It will also look nice. So that £5,000 deal from the government, much as I'm not political, it's actually a good thing that they're doing this. So if you can find a way to get your £5,000 voucher, go for it. 10 minutes left. Okay, what do I need to say to you? Please compost your food. Please don't throw away vegetable peelings and all your organic waste. Please find a way to save it, because the earth is crying out for it. Our earth is dead. Earth can be either dead or alive. And earth has to be full of vitamins and minerals. And when you are standing there after you've peeled your potatoes or you've peeled your carrots and you've got a handful of vegetable peelings, if you're putting that stuff in the bin, that's just like, it's throwing away life for the earth. Please get a little compost bin in the corner of your kitchen and put it in there, and then find some outside space to put them in. And if you don't have a garden, then find a neighbor that's got a garden, find a little old lady or a little old man down the road that's got a bit of back space. They'll be so happy for you to pop by once every now and again and say, I brought you some more compost for your compost bin. If they've got out space and they don't have a compost bin, buy them a compost bin, do whatever you need to do, but please don't throw away your vegetable waste, because we have this thing called insectageddon. The insects are dying. We have no bees, we have no butterflies. I've seen, the only bees I've seen in Battersea this year have been dead ones in the park, and I've seen one cabbage white. I mean, if you live in the countryside and you have abundant butterflies, then fantastic. But then, even then, let's have more. Let's look after our biodiversity. And one of the ways that we need to do that is by looking after our earth. And the way you look after your earth is by composting properly. So, it may be obvious to you, but please don't eat animals, because eating animals is one of the worst things that you can do for the planet. It's just, I mean, I'm not going to give you all the facts here, and I promised you joy. So all I can say is, please don't eat animals, because it's not nice, it's not good for the planet, it's not good for the animals, and it's not good for your health. Instead, buy yourself some wonderful vegan cookbooks. At the end of the book, I wanted to recommend 10 plant-based cookbooks. And so I started to look at them, and they're all so amazing. I couldn't just do 10, I had to go to 15. So it's worth, if you've got any extra money, please don't spend it on driving a car, don't spend it on flying, spend it on buying organic food. Because if you buy organic fruit and vegetables, sign up with Riverford, sign up with Abel and Cole, one of the ones that will come to your house and give you good organic fruit and vegetables. I personally believe it's the best possible thing that you can do for your health. UK grown, in season. If you've never done it, eating seasonally, I've only been eating seasonally for a year. Every time a veg box arrives, I'm like, what on earth is this? I mean, a Calabri, I mean, it looks like some strange space monster. I have to look up how to cook half these vegetables, because even though they grow in season in the country that I live, I've not been eating them. So seasonal eating is the most fantastic adventure. Now, as we said at the beginning, if you're a step ahead and you're growing your own organic vegetables, then you should get 20 points. But I was just doing the quiz for the plastic part. But even if you are on a very low salary, if you have any spare money at all, I honestly believe it's a good long-term investment in your health to put any spare money you have into buying organic fruit and vegetables, UK grown in season. Just, it's the best thing that you can do. And they don't come in plastic, of course. And they're life enhancing. You know, and if it sounds boring to you, then that's because you've not really explored plant-based food. Please, and it's so much better for you. It's so much better for you. And, you know, cow's milk is really good for baby cows, I hear. It's fantastic for baby cows, but it's not really very good for the rest of us. And we're talking about looking after the planet and looking after your health and being joyful. So I want you to be healthy. What have we got here? Gardening. And those things. I'm sure you've all heard about wilding. If you haven't, please read the Joyful Environmentalist and read Isabel Tree's beautiful book, Wilding. She and I together will revolutionize the way you do your garden. Forget tidy. Tidy is the enemy of biodiversity. Let plants grow, let things grow, let nature be free. Let things be free. That's wilding in 2 minutes, in short. But we've been looking after nature wrong, and we've also been gardening. We've been gardening for aesthetics rather than gardening for the insects and the birds. So one of the things I actually had to write an article today, first time for me, for Gardens Illustrated. I've never written for that magazine before, but I've got a section in the book that's about what trees you need to plant with berries on that attract the birds. And there's a list of which trees attract which birds. I mean, all this spending money on bird food is all a bit weird, isn't it? I mean, nature looks after the birds. I'm not knocking feeding the birds, because it's helped garden birds thrive. But what you really want to do is plant trees so that nature feeds the birds. So you need to plant the right shrubs and the right trees. So all that information is in the book. I've got 4 minutes left. I'm really interested. Travel. I've decided not to fly anymore nationally. Certainly, I'm not going to fly nationally at all. So I was invited yesterday to attend the Guernsey Literature Festival. I've never been to Guernsey. I'm so excited. But I said, I don't, sorry. Someone's saying, listen to Isabel Tree on Desert Island Discs. It's a joy. Yes, it is. I'm really looking forward to going to Guernsey on a train and a boat. You know, it's this whole slow down thing, enrich life. I mean, going airports, I mean, we're so over airports. I mean, I'm so over airports. I hate airports. They're just places where they try and sell you things. I'd much rather take a good train any time. And I'm interested in exploring traveling to Europe by train as well, and boat. And yes, I know it's more expensive, but it's all to do with choices. I don't drive a car, for example. And I was saying today, because on the radio today, someone was saying, but surely not having a car is not joyful. So I said, well, actually, let's imagine that the economic downturn gets really bad. And some of us that have cars now are not able to afford cars anymore. I don't have one anyway, but let's imagine that that's the case for you. Then you need to start to look at, okay, so how can I make it joyful to not have a car? How can I enhance my life by not having a car? So I've got this interview in the book with this woman who, she's got these 2 kids that she had to take to school, and she's got a dog and she didn't have any money. And she's like, what is she going to do? And she bought a cargo bike. And she, one of those bikes with a little thing on the back that the kids and the dog go in. And she cycles along and she says the kids are waving like they're royalty. They're waving to the passers-by, and all the passers-by see them go by every day, and the passers-by are happy and the children are happy and the dog's happy. And she says she's given up her gym membership because she gets so much exercise, and she's come off antidepressants, and she thanks the cargo bike for all that transformation. She's lost a stone. This isn't me. It sounds like I'm making it up, but this is one of the interviews that I did in my book when I just asked people, what are your joyful alternatives to not having cars? Okay, it's 1958. I better stop. Have I missed anything out? There's more in the book. Banking, gardening, energy. There's more in the book.
Isabel, we're not finishing at 8. We're going to have questions. So if you
yes.
want.
But I wanted to leave some time for questions. So I was assuming 15 minutes was the time for questions. Okay, well, let me just wrap up then if I've got a couple more minutes. So obviously not everybody is going to do everything that's in the book. But what I'm choosing, I'm discussing, I also look at volunteering. I spend an amazing week in Scotland planting trees in the Highlands of Scotland. They're joining up the Caledonian forest. I visit Knepp, which is Isabella Tree's place. It's in West Sussex, and where they've wilded this. It's open. So if you haven't visited Knepp, if you're in the UK, I absolutely recommend it. There's details about that in there. So there's all these different things in there. And obviously I'm not expecting everybody that reads the book. Did I mention the book is called The Joyful Environmentalist? But what I'm hoping is that as you read through it, in your desire to protect and look after the planet and to support your life, you will pick out things that serve you and that work for you, and that you'll find things that hopefully save you money and that add a richness to your life and support the planet, and it feels congruent, and if there's anything in it that absolutely doesn't work for you, then fine, skip to the next chapter. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay, please share questions for Isabel on here. I think that's everything. That's my flying world through, but I'd love some questions.
Quite a few people liked your idea with the pen. I can see that that's a great present, and the people are remembering they've got pens. It's a simple thing to do.
It's a very simple thing to do. It's a joyful thing. Bulb and octopus are as good, if not better than good energy. Okay, I discuss this in the book because I say to Juliet Davenport, when I meet her, I ask her about the other companies that are also good. She does mention, we do discuss octopus. Yes, I've heard they are one of the good ones. Bulb, I don't know as well, but octopus is one of the ones that she recommends. And I was very impressed when, as an energy provider, she was prepared to recommend some of her competition. So yeah, they're good as well. And there's a couple more.
What was the catalyst that sparks your passion for the environment? Judy's asking you.
I think I've been an environmentalist all my life, but I remember when I was a child, I used to live in Brighton, and they were building the Brighton Marina, and they were getting rid of all the beaches, and I was furious. I must have been about 8. I mean, I think we're all, if we've been fortunate enough to grow up with nature around us, we are all passionate about the environment, aren't we? And I think one of the good things that's happened during lockdown is that people that didn't know it before have discovered what they call the consolation of nature. In other words, no matter how bad the news is, no matter what's going on, the fact that Trump is still running America and there's all this dreadful stuff going on, and you just feel miserable. But then you walk out through a wood and you go, actually, this is beautiful, and there's beauty here, and we need to protect that, and we need to develop that, and we need to have an enriched version of nature. So, do you pick up rubbish wherever you go? Yes, I do. I do. Hold on a minute. I'm going to show 1 second. Oh, yes.
I could take a carry bag with me to put it in there, or a bag anyway. Currently mounted with a small holding carry.
My litter picker.
What is it?
My litter picker. It's actually one of the things that, you know, your granny used to have for picking things up off the ground when she couldn't reach them. So you can buy them in chemists. They're for the elderly to reach things off the ground. But also, if you're walking around, people complain about all this thing about people dropping plastic gloves and plastic masks in the street, and they do drop them. But they allow crazy people like me, and there are lots of other people like this, the satisfaction of picking them up and dropping them in the bin. I can't tell you how satisfying it is. So when I walk around my local park, which I do most days, and listen to podcasts, I pick up litter as I go, and I very much enjoy it. That's an example of joyful environmentalism for me. I know it's a bit mad. I've got a girlfriend coming to stay in a couple of weeks, and we've agreed that we're going to go and dress up as superheroes, and then we're going to go out and pick up litter. That's our idea of a good afternoon.
That's a great idea. Somebody, Anna's saying here about she's volunteering as a small holding caretaker in Dorset.
Oh, wonderful.
Scored low on the quiz, but she's learning a lot. She loves nature, but steeped too deep in modern shortcuts. But chickens, I have a chicken and cockerel here, total joy, and I get eggs. Is this environmentally friendly to have a chicken with giving you eggs?
I must tell you, Mike, your love, who's asked that, Anne? I must tell you my rule about eggs, because I'm a vegan, as I told you. However, I will eat eggs, providing somebody can tell me the name of the chicken that's laid the egg. Yeah. Because my thinking goes, it's no good saying, oh, it's from this farm, it's from that farm. You know, they actually make up the names of these farms. Lots of these, you see them on the packets of eggs, you know, Sunny Grange Farm. If you say, where is this farm? Half these farms don't even exist. So that's not good enough. And if you go there, you go to the farm, they're not necessarily, still might be 10,000 of them, they're free range, but there's God knows how many of them fapping around. But if it's somebody with a very small number of chickens, and they know that each chicken has got its own personality, and they can say, oh, that's Frida's egg, then I'm very happy eating the chicken. Yeah. So is it environmentally friendly to eat your chicken's eggs? Yes, I think it is. I think your chicken doesn't mind. I mean, as long as you're nice to the chickens, and as long as, yes, of course. Yeah. I think small holdings are fine. If there's 10,000 chickens, then no.
A couple of people want to know whether your book is available in independent bookshops.
Yes, of course. Yes, yes.
Is that preferable, looking out for an independent bookshop, is that preferable to ordering it on Amazon?
Obviously, Amazon is one of the great evils of the world. However, it's also keeping the publishing trade alive at the moment. So people in the publishing industry have mixed feelings about it. If you have a local independent bookshop, then of course go there. But if you don't, and you have trouble getting out, or you live miles from anywhere, then Amazon is also very supportive to authors at this time.
Yeah. Another book question here from Tony. Do you steer clear of politics in the book? And if so, was that a difficult decision?
Do I steer clear of politics? I had an interesting experience, Tony, when I became an activist. I discovered that, as many people have claimed, the media is very, very biased. So what I did is I went out there and I did my activism, and then on the days and then I came home in the evening and I read the papers. And I'm sad to say that the right-wing press was just unpleasant. I mean, there was the largest, people were out there, people were so passionate about getting the government to put the environment before money that they were willing, there were grandmothers chaining themselves under trucks, and children and teenagers and pregnant women being fantastically brave and courageous to and were prepared to risk being arrested. Thousands of people in peaceful protest were arrested. It was the largest peaceful protest since Chartist times. Don't ask me when Chartist times are, I can't remember, but it was a long time ago. And the government and the right-wing press would say it's disgusting, blah, 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 shocking, angry mob, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't an angry mob. It was a group of thousands of passionate people. So, but I'm not saying that I don't, but I'm not political in that I think that, you know, many people who are passionate conservatives, that there's a trick in the title, conservative, you know, they are also interested in looking after the planet and conserving nature and conserving the environment. But sadly, we seem to have got in this neoliberal loop of putting money before everything. And I think we're reaching the stage now where we have a choice. We have to have a green renewal. We have to have it because, you know, otherwise we're not going to have a planet left. So I'm not political because I'm not against anyone, but I do consider in the book as a section, because we were coming up to the European elections. And I thought, well, okay, I ought to put my politics in this bracket too. So I went out and did some canvassing for the Green Party, which I'm a floating voter in that I vote for whoever I think is going to do the best job at the time. And it was very interesting canvassing for the Green Party, and they did very well in the European elections at that time. And I think all these things just send a message, or we hoped, send a message to the government to let them know how much people care about the environment. But obviously now we don't know quite where we are with all that.
But we're in a time now, somebody was just talking about people are generally not wanting to go back to, we want a new normal. They don't want to go back to how it was. 89% of people is, you know, it's, I think that said it in the Sunday papers. And, you know, the message from the government is go out and shop. So I think there's a greater will among the people. And so every individual act we do and share with others is meaningful, isn't it? You know, you are talking small, it all adds up, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. We need to stop shopping. Yes, we do, and we need to be growing vegetables instead.
Yes, indeed. You talked about smart meters. I'm looking for the comment here, and I'm looking back along the comments about smart meters. You mentioned them, and are they good? I can't find the comment.
Smart meters, you'll really have to read the book have to buy the book to answer the question about smart meters, because it's very complex. Because smart meters is to do with the way the information in your box outside communicates with a little thing that is a receiver. And it's complicated. I don't have a smart meter, and I don't want a smart meter. I'm against smart meters. When I went to see Juliet Davenport, I got all kinds of terrible stories from people about how bad smart meters were, including a friend who said that she'd seen a video where sperm in a petri dish swam backwards when they were around the smart meter. And I think I saw a slight smile go across Juliet Davenport's face when she said, well, I haven't seen that particular experiment myself. No, I don't think we need a smart meter.
This is one of the difficulties with having a smart home that's completely wired. You know, the more you surround yourself with electromagnetic fields, the more you're cooking yourself in an electro soup, aren't you? So, and you know, as you were saying about the politics, it's complicated. Nothing is straightforward. I'm looking now. She's people power. Yep.
There's more about anyone with questions about smart meters. It's long. It's quite a long section in here, because I try and look reasonably about the pros and the cons from Juliet Stevenson and Juliet Davenport. Juliet Davenport herself, who's the CEO of Good Energy, says smart meters aren't smart. They're pretty stupid. So, and I said, I'll quote you on that. And she said, okay. Do I have a microwave? No, I've never owned a microwave.
Question here, but do you think the pandemic will be the catalyst for a greener world? Judy's asking. what impact it's going to make.
The thing is, the focus of my work is always on our point of empowerment, and our point of empowerment is ourself. So I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what the government isn't doing, or what the world is or isn't doing. But I care passionately about what I do and what everyone that I can influence does. So is the green environment, is the pandemic going to be a catalyst for a greener world? I would reply, well, Judy, do you have a green energy provider? And if so, do you think you could be persuaded to change? Because I think, you know, we have to keep coming back to ourselves. And also it's not depressing, because then we're empowered, because we're looking at what we can do rather than what is outside our control all the time. And that doesn't mean that we don't want to get involved with the bigger picture. I mean, only today I was writing to my local council because they're still spraying Roundup on the ground. And I was writing to them explaining why because apparently lots of people in Wandsworth like the streets to be tidy. We like it tidy apparently around here. And so the council is convinced that everybody wants it tidy. So I said to one of the local Wandsworth Extinction Rebellion people, I said, well, I'll write and I'll say, I love watching the flowers grow. So they'll at least have a letter from someone that doesn't want it tidy, that wants no Roundup on the land. Because what happens is people complain when they don't like it, but they don't write. So the local council has a completely distorted idea about what people want. So of course we have to get involved in the greater picture to an extent, but I'm more interested in what we can change rather than worrying about what we can't change. Does that make sense?
And it's also a good point about writing a letter. I mean, don't expect the whole world to change from that letter, but they can't then say nobody's ever said anything to us. You know,
it's just one more voice. I mean, no, there's a whole, they've got a petition, the local Extinction Rebellion, the local Green Party, they're lobbying the council the whole time with petitions. But I said, and obviously I wrote a good letter, and I say I've lived in Latchmere Ward for 25 years. I've never written to the council before, and then I sent them pictures, and I talked about the tree pits around here. Like I was in Southfields, and you know where the tree grows, there's like an area of earth around it. And in Southfields, every single tree pit has had compost put in, and they've grown flowers around the trees. It's absolutely beautiful. Round here, it's just all bare and awful, and there's litter or chemicals on the land. So there's a lot to be done. But I like to focus on what we can do, even if it's something as small as picking up the plastic gloves that are on the in the park when I walk around the park.
Somebody's mentioned here, humanity rising every day, free, ordinary, it's for free, ordinary people joining together to make real change. I think I'm not sure who does that.
People joining together to make real change.
Diane who said that.
Humanity rising. I'll have a look. I'll look them up. I don't know.
Is it Ubiquity University? Was it? Yes, it is. Diane's nodding. At 4 o'clock every day, I've been on one. I went on the one where it was about centres of light, and we have a stately home here where 3,000 acres are all being rewilded.
Great.
You can't go there and you can't shoot game. This is
fantastic.
He was talking on the Humanity Rising, so that is a great one. So Diane's nodding. Yeah, that's a great place. So Judy's asking, what's your favourite action that you do to make small changes in our world? Your favourite action? I can tell you like doing the gadget, picking up litter. What's your favourite action to make a small change?
I keep being asked these things, and it's more like a jigsaw. It's more watching how all the little parts go together to make a whole. There's not one piece. There's the food piece, and there's the eating congruently, and the banking congruently, and the volunteering, and all of it. We need to change all of it. We need to question everything, basically. A lot of our conditioning needs to be questioned. Like the most obvious example of conditioning is the fact that humanity seems to think it's fine to eat pigs and cows, but we'd all be horrified by eating dogs and horses. I mean, that's just, what's the difference with these animals? I mean, there's no, they're all just beautiful creatures, but we've been conditioned to see that as normal. We've been conditioned to think that it's okay to go into a shop and buy some item of clothing that's been made by some woman in Bangladesh or Leicester, as it turns out, and not say, but who's made this? What's the supply chain of this item I'm buying? What's the supply chain of this, this mug or this pen or everything we buy? And I mean, this pen, going back to this pen, I spoke at Hay, and there was an all-women shop. That what they do at the Hay Festival is they have different local businesses sponsor the different events. And this was my book about sexuality. And an all-women group had got together to sponsor my event, and they were running a stationer's. And I went down there to thank them, and I bought a pen, and I said, I will buy my pens from you for the rest of my life. And so I know where my pen's coming from. I mean, I don't know who made the pen, but I know which stationers I got it from, and I know who's running the business where I bought the pen. So the more we're in touch with these things, the more enriched our lives are. I wish I was wearing some clothing that someone I'd love had made. That would be enriching my life again. And I wish I was drinking. I'm not drinking my mug tonight out of a mug that from where I know the person that's made it. I know the person that's made the mug. I know the person that's painted it. And that would be a way of celebrating that person, and so on and so on and so on. And then our lives are enriched because everything, I say in the book, like Marie Kondo is a genius. She's all right. She's a slightly OCD. No, not supposed to say that. She's a slightly obsessive, maybe Japanese woman, but she's taught us all to think about the objects in our lives, and that is part of this, because the less we have, the less we need to buy. Anyway, listen, I'm over time. I'm very conscious of time.
Yes, okay. I thought it was 7:30, but it's 7. So yes, we're coming up to the end. So what you're saying is to be in touch with everything, be aware, be conscious as we buy, and don't think of ourselves as consumers, think of ourselves as stewards looking after things. And
yes. I'm saying please buy the book. I'd be really, really grateful if you'd buy a copy. It's also, the book is funny. It's not written in a depressing way. It's written in a way that makes people laugh. And so it's a positive read at a time when everybody needs positivity in their life right now, because let's face it, there's a lot of problems going on out there. So I'm getting lots of lovely emails from people saying it's making me laugh. So if I can make people laugh when they read and also give them good ideas, then I've done my job. Fantastic. So, and buy it for a friend that is a bit low, that cares about nature, because a lot of environmentalists are depressed because they think there's nothing they can do. So
looks like it's a great read, a great idea, and a great gift. And Isabel, you're a great gift too. Thank you so much. I'm going to unmute, and then people can go, hey, where do I? No, I can't. People have to unmute themselves. I don't know how to do that. But thank you so much. I'm truly.
Thank you.
I hope it was fun. And they're weird, these events. I prefer live ones where I actually get to meet you all. But it's lovely. Thank you for dropping in. One person. Next
best thing from being live.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Diane, lovely. Thank you. It was great. I'm inspired. There's lots of things I know, and there's lots of little things to add or to be re-inspired about things that I know and I don't do. So thank you.
And there's more in the book, of course, that I didn't have time to talk about.
Isabel, thank you so much. And if everyone wants to just quickly write in the chat box a thank you to Isabel, then we can print it out for her.
Yeah, there's lots of lovely.
I'm interested in the comments as well. Be mindful of every object you handle. Yes, exactly. That's so lovely.
We'll send you the comments as well. We get.
That's how I love OCD. It's really helpful. Plays for everything. Yes, that's true. So much for great. Oh, thank you, everyone. It's so lovely. This group is such a lovely group. You're all so focused on the positive and supportive and, lovely. You don't feel when you talk to this group that everyone's out to get you. You get the feeling instantly everyone's out to bat for you, It's a lovely group to speak to.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much once more.